Hey everyone, welcome back. Been a while since I've updated with a new video, but here we go. Okay, so this game was sent in by Chaser GT. He's playing as the black pieces in this game. His rating is 1164, and he is playing against someone that's rated 1233. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. Okay, E4, C5 Sicilian, C3, C3 Sicilian. Knight f6. So usually in the Sicilian, if my opponent plays c3 on the second move, I play d5 right away, because in the Sicilian usually d5 is a move you want to play, and so why not play it as soon as possible. And in addition, if something like takes after d5, queen d5, there's no knight c3 gaining tempo and developing. So you don't have to worry about that, which is usually a reason why you don't want to put the queen in the center, because she can get attacked, but in that case that's not happening. So you get to play d5 right away. So usually that's pretty good in the Sicilian. Okay, and that's what I like to do. Knight to f6 was played. f3, probably not the best, because usually you don't want to play f3 early on. You don't want to move the f-pawn. So that probably wasn't the best for white. And then here comes d5. So d5 still needs to be played, so that's good, but it's just not quite as good as it would have been last move, because now e5 can be played. And so, it's still good you get d5 in, but just not quite as good because now e5. Let's see here. So knight f to d7. So when I looked at knight f to d7, one thing that I looked for is to see if there's any type of e6 sacrifice. It's not working in this case, but sometimes you have to watch out when playing knight to maybe, because maybe there's e6 sometimes, which can sometimes be a positional sacrifice to make it so maybe a light squared bishop can't develop, and then also maybe sometimes it becomes difficult to develop at the dark squared bishop because there's double pawns. And also sometimes will weaken this diagonal, but in this case I checked it out, it doesn't work. There's some variations of some openings where that type of sacrifice idea works. Okay, so knight f7, f4, and e6. So e6 is a little bit of a positional error here, because if we look here, we're basically getting a French type of position that's going to happen, because d4 is eventually played, and so that's kind of a French position. And in this position, before e6 is played, you would have that French position without having played e6, which means that you get the benefit of having c5 played early, but you don't block in the light square bishop. After e6, then you do have the blocked in light squared bishop. So you could have had, potentially the benefit of the French in the Caro-Kann light setups together. So that's one thing to think about. e6, it did lock in the bishop. Okay, knight f3, knight c6, d4, and c4. Okay, so c4, that move I didn't like because it releases some of the tension in the center. And in some cases in the French defense, sometimes you can play c4, but in this position, it's giving up the tension on d4. And usually in the French, you want to pile on to d4 with moves like queen b6, c5, knight c6, and then you get a lot of pressure on d4. And c6 or c4 in this position leaves some of that tension that you had on d4. And in some cases, c4 is good. In the French, just not in this position, because it gives up some of that tension. Okay. b3, okay. Knight b6. b4. I also don't like b4 for the same reason that I didn't like c4. I think it relieves some of the tension on the pawns. Okay, bishop b7. g3. Castles. a4, a5, b5, and knight b8. Okay, So right here is where there was one move that that's really, really crazy. And I almost actually missed this idea. But it's really... You really have to be feeling really creative and really want an interesting game to play this. Knight to b4. So think about this for a minute. So this is a really, really interesting idea here, because let's say white takes here, which it would be the move that most people would immediately consider. After this, we have these two connected passed pawns that are pretty close and unopposed to the queening squares. So I think that a piece sacrifice here is actually a potentially reasonable idea. So maybe white actually might not take that knight, you know. So that's one interesting idea. If you're feeling pretty crazy, you could try something like that. Okay, and the game, knight to b8 is played. h4 and h6. I feel like h6 is not exactly considering the whole position right here, because h6 isn't necessary right now, and it looks like white has played a lot of pawn moves and not developed pieces are castled. So I think that things to try to open the center, maybe like f6, and just try to open anything as much as you can, because, you know, maybe you can take them, at least you can start opening maybe files, things like that, or something along those lines, and then the more open the position becomes, the more the extra development that black has would be better. Okay, h6, bishop h3, knight d7, f5, and f6. So right here, black should probably just take here. First off, let's go through the light square idea. So somehow I guess you could think that if you take, then maybe after things, maybe you can do like queen c2, and maybe these light squares get weak. But not really, because you can just do rook e8, knight f8. So there's nothing to really fear on those light squares. So really nothing to fear on the light squares. The other thing is, in playing f6, you then have to deal with taking. And then being down upon. Okay. Bishop h6, bishop takes on h6, 17. Okay. So I don't know why people always want to sacrifice when it's not necessary. So bishop takes on h6. White had a pretty decent positional advantage here. Without needing to sacrifice, he still had a pretty decent potential attack going on the king side, going on the against this black king. And so sacrificing isn't necessary. Like, before the sacrifice, white can just slowly build up and keep attacking maybe some of these weaknesses, and then also have, you know, an extra pawn. But after this, now black at least has a material advantage, at least. So some of that advantage that white had slipped away a little bit. h5, queen e8, g4. Okay, so I think that bishop f5 would be better. That way the rook is defending. And then, you know, there's also potentials for bishop g6. And also, another downside is that after g4, the bishop can take on e6. Queen c1, king h7, knight h4, f5. And let's see. Queen c2. Bishop takes check. Okay, yeah, losing the knight. She takes f5. Queen takes h5. King c1. Bishop takes. Okay, so right. I think it's right here. After Rook takes. Yeah, so you can take with the rook, but one other thing is bishop g5, because then check, and you're discovering attack on the rook. So you always gotta look out for every possibility. It's still definitely better for black, but it could be even better with bishop to g5. So you always gotta look for the best move. Knight d7, king b2, rook f2, and here it looks like black's pulling away a bit. So we'll go through quickly to get to the end here. And right after queen to g6 check, rook is gonna be lost because of this fork. And yeah, there's no way to save it. I mean, even if you block the check, still losing it. So, so that's it for this game. All right. So, an interesting game. I think one thing to look at though is the tension on the pawns. You don't want to give up tension if it's not necessary, and if it's helping you. And also, you should avoid making moves like here, like e6. Wasn't necessary because it blocked on your bishop. You know, you could have had the benefit, you know, after like say knight b6, you could potentially, you know, get this bishop out somehow out of the pawn chain, and then you have these two pawns, you know, plus the bishop out. So it's kind of like an improved French defense. All right. So those are some ideas. Hope this helps. Bye.